And she said, "There's one more thing I want to tell you. This man," pointing to Neil, "and your company that you represent saved our farm." Think about it. Just think about what it meant. Hi there, everyone. I'm so glad to welcome you to my little home in Sun Lakes, Arizona. For months, I had planned to be with you today. Unfortunately, I failed to file my flight plans with the guy in charge. And guess what? He said, "Lila, your work is done." I accept that. And since I learned many years ago that there was more than one way to skin a cat, here I am. And before you think that I was an honored guest invited to speak, I need to tell you, I invited myself. I have a short story to tell you, and I just told David I'd be there. Believe me, he learned a long time ago. It was just easier to say, "Good idea, Aunt Lila, good idea." Oprah Winfrey once said, "The more you praise and celebrate your life, the more there is in life to celebrate." At 89, my book is filled. In the late 1960s, I stumbled into journalism, desperately needing a job. I loved the profession. I became known as the feisty little, and the only time I've ever been called little, editor from Northern Illinois. Here's the humor of this story. I was the editor of small weeklies for 11 years. My paper went into maybe 2,000 homes in rural northwestern Illinois. Maybe 2,000. But when the feds were going to close our Savannah Army Depot and eliminate hundreds and hundreds of jobs, I raised hell. And I made phone calls. "Senator Percy, there's a lady who says she's a reporter and wants to talk to you." Hell, you would have thought I was the editor of the Washington Post. In reality, I didn't have the power of a pissant. But Senator Chuck Percy's Washington secretary didn't know that. As Percy later said to me, "Lila, you got my attention. You may have had to use a baseball bat, but you got my attention." Hundreds of jobs were saved for years. Later, that invitation was led to the inaugural ceremonies for Jim Thompson in Illinois, his first of 4 terms, the one that we have that's not in prison. Anyway, I had a tap on my shoulder as I attended the inaugural ceremonies that day, and he said to me, "Senator Percy would like to have you join him at the head table." Well, I just brushed myself up. I just bounced right along, and I joined Senator Percy at the head table at the inaugural. Then the state of Illinois decided it needed to take, by eminent domain, hundreds of acres of land and add it to the Palisades State Park, a beautiful place which overlooks the Mississippi River. Hell, the state already had hundreds of acres, all of it undeveloped. So on the phone, I stayed until I got through to the top man, who finally flew in on a helicopter, 7 o'clock in the morning. He saw the mess the state already had. Problem ended that day. Not one person lost his farm to eminent domain. Another time during these 11 years, I was a co-hostess at a meeting in Chicago featuring President Ford. I was allowed to take 2 guests. I took my brother Dell and his wife. As I drove into the hotel's parking lot that morning, my first sight were uniformed SWAT troops marching with AK-47s on the hotel roof. I turned off the ignition. I looked over at my brother and I said, Oh my God, Dell, we're not in Kansas anymore. I shared lunch later with Tom Brokaw. I spent 3 days at West Point, just threw in a crash landing of the plane on the route en route home over Ohio. Toured inner city Chicago schools, sights that continue to haunt me. And I've played golf at Pebble Beach 3 times. I've been to St. Andrews once. I've spent a week on the French Riviera, another at the Spanish Riviera, but only 1 day in Italy. One of my greatest memories are from a visit to the village of Ez, south of Cannes, France, a place later featured in the movie The Bucket List. Yep, kids, Mom spent your money, so be it. I've had a life shared with 3 siblings, worked like slaves in melon fields, to what you've heard just now. Why wouldn't I celebrate today? This day is historic. This day is humongous. Isn't that a good word? It just rolls off your tongue. And this day is so humbling. So humbling. And I can hear my dear brother's words. There is a better way to feed livestock. Again and again and again. He believed in what he said. It's a word he constantly used. A word that turned to passion. And a passion that turned to proof. What a day this is. I joined AgriKing in 1984. And you gave me the best years of my life. Yes, you really did. At AgriKing, there's always another challenge. There's always another mountain to climb. But the beauty of it is, we have a company that lets us climb. Until Tightwad Hanrahan gets a hold of your budget, you're free to go until then. And then, whoop. Anyway, I loved being in the field, obviously. That's where the action is. That's where I learned what you needed. That's where I learned what I could do to help. Inside our Fulton complex are paper shufflers, researchers, and on and on and on. Every person there is a valuable employee. But until you sell something, we have nothing. So I want to go back to the field when I first started and share a few of my old memories. Just be patient, Dave. I know I'm running over time. Put your watch away. Anyway, they are old memories because I had already retired by the time the international market was developed, Washington State, California, Michigan, and I so regret that I didn't get to share the time with the younger group in here as I did with the older ones. So here's just some good laughs. And if you don't remember them the way I've told them today, get on with it, get over them. Anyway, Al Curry, one of my first trips to the field. My God, what was that horrid vehicle you picked me up in? I mean, I think it was a yellow van, but when we're flying down a gravel road and the dust is flying up through the bottom of the floorboards, it's hard to see where you are or what you're in. But Al Curry, you took me to a farm that day and I was to do a testimonial. I said to Al as we're driving down the road, now these people have met all the criteria, Al. You know the rules. I'm not to do a story unless this, and this, and this are met. Got it all. So where's that to go? Did the story. Headed back to the truck. I think it was a truck. Anyway, I happened to push open a barn door as I walked by. And here's all these black and white Holstein heifers. And I took one look at those cows, heifers. Didn't say anything, got in the car, and I said, Al, those heifers are not on our AgriKing program. Well, no. Well, I didn't think you'd see them. I said, okay, Al, so be it. He said, Lila, I really need the publicity. I understand, Al, the story will be written. George DeLong, you're back there giggling about the van. What have you got to giggle about? Some of the most horrendous trips I took through Pennsylvania was in trips made in your vehicles. It was held together with Scotch tape and I swear to God, chewing gum. So what have you got to laugh about? And then we go to northern Minnesota. Now in those days, in the 90s, late 80s and 90s, when I went to do a presentation of any kind or help with a story, I had to carry overhead projectors. I didn't have this cute little computer that, I had to carry all this crap with me. So I lug it to the end of the hotel where my room was, finally get the door shoved open, and there was a man in my bed, and I hadn't ordered him. So on to another region, Pennsylvania. Don Sanders, here's a story that you have never heard before, so bear with me. We had worked all day long on the Amish farms. Delightful, delightful day, but I was exhausted by the time we got to the hotel. Don drove me up to the ramp. I went to the front door and checked in. See you in the morning. Okay. There was one person in the lobby, and it felt weird. But I checked in, went to my room, unlocked the door, the knob falls off. Not a good sign. I pushed open the door, put my luggage in the first chair, chair goes. I look around. Nothing or no one had been in that room for God only knows how long. And it stunk. And I was tired. So who do I call? I call Wayne. And I'm crying. I'm tired. And he said, honey, where are you? I said, hell, I don't know where I am. I'm in Pennsylvania somewhere. And he said, well, look at something. Tell me there. Look. Oh, yeah, there's a Subway out there on one corner and McDonald's on the other. I said, isn't that a lot of help? I had some candy bars in my purse. I ate those. I took the dresser, shoved it up against the door, and went to bed. God only knows what I slept in that night, but it doesn't matter. I met Don the next morning. We were on the road. You never knew anything about it. And then I've got to pick on Binga a little bit. It wouldn't be just natural to talk to AgriKing and not talk about Binga. There was a plane load of us headed for the east, and Binga was sitting at my right here on the next row of seats and our private plane. I happened to look around. If I recall, we were somewhere over Indiana, Ohio, somewhere in there. Binga's left eyeball was down here. Not here, it was down here. I assessed the situation very quickly. My right-hand gal, Paula, was making her first trip east with me. And I calmly got out of my seat and I went up to the pilot and I said, Houston, we have a problem. We need to set down at the nearest airport and get Binga to a hospital. Okay, Don said, I'll do her. So I go back and I look at Binga and I said, are you feeling okay, Binga? Well, I'm fine. Well, I said, your eyeball is not quite. Oh. Problem canceled. We're on to Pennsylvania. Binga, you can give them the rest of that story later. I can't talk about our pilot without talking about some of the weird things that he and I have been through, because we worked on training, we worked on recruiting, we worked on just about every aspect there was of the company, anything that needed to be done or could be done. Somewhere along the line, Don was usually involved with it, including the fire at the hotel in Iowa, where I thought the beer-drinking boys from Iowa had intimidated my new assistant, my assistant Paula, because she kept calling me, telling me that the hotel was on fire. And I was sure they'd gotten her into her favorite drink, and I thought, oh, damn. Anyway, next thing I knew, a very breathless Don Steiner knocked on my door. He had ran something like 9 floors up there. He said, Lila, The hotel is on fire. I said, I can smell it, I can smell it. I have no idea what I had on or didn't have on. I really do not remember. I turned around to leave the room immediately, and Don said, stop, Lila. It isn't burning that fast. We'll get you some clothes. So we got some clothes. They formed a circle, and they helped me dress out in the parking lot. That was a night, that's the night the fight song was born. As Bill and Al created that thing from the Star Spangled Banner. It's one of those nights. It was just a great night, and the story is in the book. Then there was the weekend that the Kings entertained Wayne and I in Pennsylvania, and we got to know the Amish people, their how they lived. You took us through that gorgeous country, and it was how could you forget a weekend with Aldi and his beautiful wife Judy? You couldn't forget it. It's impossible. Then let me move to New York. Neil Brewster. The day I came to work with you in Upper New York was snowing. It was about 10 above zero. And we couldn't go through over the mountains because of the weather. We had to go around the mountains, which made every appointment, each one a little bit later. Along the way, Neil had to stop and phone in a ration change sheet. He's at an outside phone near a gas station, and a big man, Neil was having trouble just standing there against the wind, flapping these papers, and no one answering the phone at the home company in Fulton. Well, Monday morning, that problem landed on the officer's desk and said, improve phone system. We went on that day. We did make all of our stops. But the last stop is the stop that I want to tell you about. We did our story. The farm was obviously in serious financial condition. But after the story was done, the owners took me to their home, as they always did, and I was always fed these hot, gooey rolls, fresh pies, coffee, and we'd chat. And that's what we were doing. And I was getting ready to leave, and I looked up, and I was shaking the hands of the lady hostess. And she said, there's one more thing I want to tell you. This man, pointing to Neil, and your company that you represent, saved our farm. Think about it. Just think about what it meant. That is the story of this company again and again and again. And yes, we were working with small herds and small places, and now we're in the big ones and big places. They're the same problems, Guy. It's just a different level. And then I think of Gary Kramer, and I think of the months that he struggled with his wife dying of cancer. And I remember the funeral with him, carrying one baby in one arm and leading another. Gary, the company never, ever gave up. They supported you every inch of the way. But what I want you to know today is that at Christmas time, you sent me a decoration. And I want you to know that that decoration stood in my home on the wall until the very last needle fell off of it. I can't leave here and move on to what I really came to talk about until I talk about old Triple Treat Silo King Winger. We started with the company at about the same time, and he soon became our #1 salesman of Silo King. He sold Silo King unbelievably numbers. So in the days before high technology, I and the sales department stayed at the office on New Year's Eve until the last dollar was counted. And so there we were, waiting for the Silo King sales to come in, and Larry was always the leader, so it was always Larry I called. I tried to call as many of the top salesmen as I could on our Silo King's promotion because it set the budget for the whole damn year. So anyway, I was talking to Larry that night. And we were going over the numbers and one thing and another. And he said, I've had something strange happen. We'll talk about it. And I said, well, I'm not doing anything. I said, my bubbly's waited too long now. Anyway, Larry said to me, I've got this little Amish farmer, and I am triple treating Silo King on his forages. And he's telling me that he is getting more milk, feeding less feed, and shoveling less manure. So I sat there very quietly in the Fulton office and I said, Larry, you realize what you're telling me? Well, yeah, he said, something's going on. I said, obviously, something's going on. I'm going to make notes of it and I will take it to the officers Monday. And he said, no, this is between you and I. He said, this is not for publication. I'm just sharing you what we've seen. I said, okay, track it, big boy. Next year we talked again. How's it going? Lila, it's the same story. I've also been trying it out on my little Jersey herd. Same story. We're feeding less feed, we're getting more milk, and we're shoveling less manure. I said, that situation is only proven in chickens. It's feed efficiency. The dairy industry has never, ever heard of feed efficiency. You tell this in public, you'll get laughed at. I know. Can I tell Clark and Dell? No. Another note. By the way, Larry, I still have that folders. I still have those notes from those years. Anyway, I retired in '95. Our New Year's Eve calls continued, even though I was no longer at the sales department. I continued to talk to Larry every New Year's Eve. And in the next room in my little Arizona home was Dell and Clark. And so after about 3 years of him telling me I couldn't do anything about it, I said, Larry, I'm not asking you this year if I can do something about it. I'm just going to do it. I'm going into the next room the minute I hang up and tell them what you think you have discovered. I went in the next room, the rest is history. I believe Clark was on your farm shortly. I believe the research started at Delaware University, I believe, shortly. Long story short, what you saw on that little farm has translated to revolutionizing the way we feed dairy cows. So go back to 1948, my brother, and his passion. There is a better way to feed cows, and you were part of that. You were a big part of it. But it was because you kept your eyes open, you saw things, but you worked for a company then that listened to you. Then I'm going to finish with the Baker family. I was in on the opening of the northern part of Indiana when we expanded there. We had around 20-some men show up that night for jobs in the new prospective territory. Stan Baker was one of them. Stan Baker did not impress me as a salesman, but he impressed me as a person. If Stan Baker told me that this is what I needed to put on my hay, I would have put it on my hay. If Stan Baker told me this is what my cows needed to eat, I would have fed them. The next morning we had eliminated some of our prospects. Stan was still there. We conferred quickly. There was Don Steinhagen, John Maddie. I worked with John for years. What a delight. We rarely agreed, but my God, it was fun. And we decided definitely Stan Baker would be one of our employees. I was at his home a couple of years later. He had these 3 little rugrats and this absolutely gorgeous wife, Bonita. Today, Stan's still with us. 2 of those little rugrats are with us. And I still can't figure out why the rugrats both resemble Stan, this beautiful Bonita. But neither one of you look a thing like your mother. And my last image of Bonita, and you're all going to enjoy this. Here is beautiful Bonita in this gorgeous hotel in Reno, Nevada, where the last President's Club I believe I attended. And I needed to do something. I handed her my gimlet. Now, as you well know, Bonita probably is, I'm not sure she's ever had a drink in her hand in her life, but whatever. Here she is holding my gimlet while I run off to do some stupid thing. I come back and here's this picture of Bonita with my gimlet. And I said, God, I hope somebody got that picture. I hope someone got that picture, Bonita. But we're blessed with supporting spouses in this company. And they're so invaluable to the success of any company is to have the support that you fellas and you gals now have in the field. I could continue all day. My list is endless. But in these trips, I did my best to see what you needed, and sometimes what you needed wasn't what you wanted. But I did my best to see what we could compromise on. And I guess I'm the most proud of my Target program. And in those days before digital wonders, I clipped my Target circles from Sunday's Target ad and gave my idea to the North Wall. The rest is history. Don't mess with my jewel. And now, finally, for the story that I came to tell you. But let's first review this list of short words. Listen to me. I'm not giving you a choice. Listen to me. You have to believe. If you do not believe in what you're doing, do yourself a favor, do us a favor, move on. But if you don't believe that we are offering you and our clients the best damn feeding program in this country, think about it. That belief leads to passion. And there simply is no replacement for passion. Passion for what you work, for what you're doing, where you're doing it, when you're doing it. Passion. We've proved everything Del said because the belief, the passion led to proof. My God, look at our laboratory. Look at it. It's an incredible addition to this company that has proven everything that we've talked about all these years. My next word is culture. I'll illustrate it with a story that I have told for years to every guest and every professor and every group that visited AgriKing, including the busload of 17 Amish people from Pennsylvania that was brought to Fulton, Illinois to visit the home office. And when those Amish people got off of that bus, they all had on their black habits, carrying babies, suitcases, whatever. Here's the point I'm making. Every person off that bus, including like a 4-month baby, had a handmade bright green Kelly shirt on in tribute to our company. This story can be found on pages 126 and 127 in our book, but once you hear it, you're not going to forget it anyway. And if you find errors in this book that's just off the press, blame Clark and Edna. I couldn't have done all those mistakes. I couldn't have made them by myself. I had to have help along the ways. These simple words tell AgriKing's story of 50 years. And in another 50 years, there had better be someone in this audience to repeat them. These simple words give us another piece of the puzzle. That is why we are here today. The AgriKing Memorial was created because of the Bill Schroeder story. I arrived early for work one summer morning, it was about 1985, at my AgriKing desk, ready to bring several projects to completion. "Grab your camera and notebook," Clark said as he walked by my door. "We're headed for Wisconsin." Within a few hours, Clark was sitting by the bedside of Bill Schroeder. He was an AgriKing area manager of more than 5 years. Bill was dying of cancer. Propped up on the living room couch, thin, frail, colorless, a proud man. Bill's voice was strong at times, and he wanted to talk with AgriKing's president, Clark Curley. First, Bill asked that he be terminated, as he no longer felt that it was fair that he was getting a paycheck. He wasn't working. "I don't want to be paid if I'm not working," Bill clearly said. "And I may be a sick man, but I'll get off this couch and kick your ass, Clark. I'll kick your ass." Clark heard, and he quietly pointed out that Bill's fellow area managers were caring for his clients. It was, and it is, just what they do. Soon, however, the two reached a compromise. If Bill would share his selling methods with us to be used in future training sessions, the pay would continue. While not mentioned, so would Bill's health insurance. Bill recalled how he attained his success, and I wrote. The once strong voice faltered at times, but it would always continue. Bill still had a job. Next, Bill asked Clark to speak at his funeral. "No problem. It would be an honor," Clark quietly replied, and while that did not happen at that time, he was touched by the request. There was still something else, and Bill was tiring. "I want my ashes spread over my company." "In Fulton?" Clark asked. "Yes, that's my company. I've loved this job." Bill had worked for AgriKing for less than 6 years. He wasn't even well known at the home office, nor particularly well liked. When he did call in, his requests were abrupt. Bill had little time for small talk. However, in the field, it was a different story. Bill was a caring, efficient area manager, highly respected by both coworkers and clients. But I was thinking, Bill grew up in Wisconsin. He raised his family there, and his final wish was for his ashes to be spread at AgriKing in Fulton, Illinois? Unexpected, to say the least. Within weeks, Bill died, leaving a wife, 8 grown children, grandchildren, and many, many friends. And it was time to spread the ashes. AgriKing rented a small plane, removed the side door, and with Clark anchored to the floor, the plane dipped low over the AgriKing complex, with the Mississippi River in the background, and the ashes were strewn. Employees stood outside in silence. Bill's son and daughter also were in the plane. Clark also recalls that during that flight from Clinton to Fulton, the plane lurched, and Bill's ashes almost ended up in the Mississippi River. But now, As Paul Harvey would say, here's the rest of the story. AgriKing's memorial was created. Bill's family was there for the dedication. And for many, many years, I've told this story every chance I got. Every time I told it, my voice choked. I never had worked anywhere where I could just call the president of the company and expect him to talk to me. I never worked anywhere where the leaders came from the bottom. Terry's story is in there. I won't embarrass him today by telling it again. You can read it for yourself. Terry started at the bottom of this thing, out in the field in Iowa, and he's now CEO. And he'll talk to you. Mike's story, it's another one. He started here, not quite at the bottom, but pretty darn close, Mike. And he's our president today. Clark still runs for the board. They're people like you and I. They're quiet, humble leaders doing their jobs, but they're reachable. You can touch them. You can talk to them. It's a culture we have. It's a culture. And we're proud of it. Bill Schroeder became an AgriKing legend. He worked long after his ashes were spread at the home office. Long after that, and still is. Believe. I'm really wrapping this up, David, so you can put your watch away. Believe. I don't need to stand here and give you 10 pages of how you're going to become a success. Because if you just listen to these few little things and apply them properly, the rest will happen. You don't hear people at AgriKing talk about money. In fact, my brother used to tell people, if you're coming to AgriKing to get rich, don't waste my time. We're here to help people. We're here to help one another. And with that will come the success. With that, everything else falls into place. So believe first. Believe in what you're doing. Make what you're doing a passion. Take the proof that you have, 50 years of it, and use it. Use it. Use it. I've already told you the story of culture, and believe me, that might be one of the proudest things I am of this company, because it's not any different today than it was when my brother started the company 50 years ago. There is a better way to feed livestock. And my very last word today, as we celebrate 50 years, preserve. It's not going to be easy. It's a tough world out there today. It's can get mean and ornery and all those other things. But keep on doing what we're doing. Keep your eyes open and keep your nose to the grindstone, so to speak, and preserve. And let me tell you something. There'd better be more than one of you at this podium 50 years from now telling this story in the updated version. I'm counting on it, fellas and gals. I know you'll get the job done. Preserve. Preserve. So believe, make it your passion, take your proof to the field, and preserve this culture. Just get it done. Just get it done. Thank you, and God bless. Done.
Excellent.
Nice. Nice.